Welcome to my YouTube Neov Story channel. Our story officially begins. I hope you like it. The younger son was bitten by a snake, so I immediately took him to the elder son's hospital for treatment. I do not want to be seen as the mistress by my eldest son's girlfriend. She not only prevented giving the serum to her son, but also slapped me. My boyfriend and I are a perfect match, yet you dare to brazenly provoke me with your illegitimate child. I was pinned to the ground and beaten by her, had my secondary sexual characteristics cut off, and she even threatened me. You little cutie, once you're locked up, you'll behave. I was beaten black and blue and taken to the emergency room, and the attending surgeon was my eldest son. His hand holding the knife was trembling violently, his face was pale. Mom, who beat you up like this? The younger son was naughty, he grabbed a snake and didn't let go, and the snake bit him back. My husband is on a business trip, and our eldest son is working a night shift at the hospital. Without a moment's hesitation, I took a taxi to the emergency room of my elder son's hospital. A beautiful nurse came running, inquiring about my son's condition, and then arranged for the hospital bed to be taken to the emergency room. I choked back tears as I explained the whole story, begging her to please save my son. She looked at the instrument with her eyes and kept talking to the people around her. But at the moment when they were about to push the hospital bed into the emergency room, the hospital bed suddenly stopped. I don't understand, I asked confusedly, what's the matter? The nurse had a gloomy expression in her eyes, staring intently at the son's face, and asked, do you know Mark Fu? I nodded, of course I recognized him, he is me. The eldest son had not even managed to say the 3 words when he was slapped across the face. What are you doing? I covered my swollen cheek and looked up at the culprit. That nurse had an arrogant and disdainful attitude, glaring at me and cursing loudly. Do you know who I am? I have been dating Mark Fu for a year, our relationship is stable, and we are preparing to get married. I then took a closer look at her face, and it seems I have indeed seen her in my elder son's circle of friends. Von Een, Mark Fu's girlfriend. I raised my hand, wanting to hold his hand. Although this is not the best time to meet my daughter-in-law for the first time, I still introduced myself first. I am Mark Fu's. Before I could even say the words mom, another slap landed on my face. I put in my full effort this time, and my cheek is burning with pain. Little darling, don't think you have a bit of charm and dare to compete with me for men. She kicked me in the stomach, and the pain made me unable to stand up straight. She glared at the hospital bed at her son. So this is the illegitimate child you bore behind my boyfriend's back? The younger son resembles his elder brother by 80%, but both brothers resemble their father. I want to explain because Mark Fu is also like a father, but Von Een did not give me this chance. She glanced at her son lying pale on the hospital bed and slowly said, we have more urgent patients now, let's deal with this one later. She said, together with the other nurses, she was preparing to leave. My head is buzzing, but I also understand that my younger son's condition cannot be delayed. Hurriedly took out the phone, wanting to call Mark Fu. Beep beep beep. The phone was busy. My younger son's complexion is getting worse and worse, and I'm becoming more and more anxious, but I can't get through to Mark Fu on the phone. I couldn't help but let out a profanity. Von Een, who was not too far away, heard it and thought I was scolding her. She turned her head abruptly, walked quickly to stand in front of me, grabbed my hair in her fist, her face contorted in a ferocious expression. Who are you calling? Mark Fu just took in an emergency case for a car accident, and is still in the operating room. Do you think contacting Mark Fu will get him to help you? She pulled a necklace out from around her neck, the familiar red ruby on it swaying in front of my eyes. This is the token of affection given to me by Mark Fu, who wants to marry me. You should not think that just because you gave birth to a child out of wedlock, he will be thinking of you. I tell you, our love is indestructible. He forcefully threw me to the ground, my clothes half open, exposing the ruby on my neck. Von Een's pupils contracted, followed by an even greater rage. How come you also have this family heirloom ruby? This ruby is indeed our family heirloom. There are 2 pieces. I gave a piece to Mark Fu, asking him to give it to the girl he likes. I will keep this piece for my younger son, but since he is still too young, I will hold on to it for the time being. Von Een was obviously mistaken. She yanked the ruby necklace off my neck, crying and laughing at the same time. Mark Fu, you liar, you said you would only love me, but now you're involved with this old woman. I hate you to death. My heart hurts, but I still can't help but want to love you. She muttered to herself, went mad for a while, then her gaze suddenly became terribly gloomy. Once they are dead, there will be no more obstacles between us. Yes. That's right. Von Een took out her phone, not knowing who to call, and after a while, I heard her say, "Brother, you must help me defend my love." But I don't have time to watch her go crazy. I climbed to the bedside of my younger son, seeing his complexion getting worse and worse, anxious and frantic. "Help, help, someone come and save my son. He was bitten by a venomous snake, his face is all bruised. If we don't save him, he will die." The other nurses around also advised Von Een. "If we really end up taking a life, that would be terrible. Should we send this child to the emergency room first?" Von Een let out a cold snort, sweeping her sharp gaze across the crowd, and slowly spoke. "Are you sure you want to stand on the mistress's side? Don't forget, Mark Fu's father is the chairman of this hospital. After I married into the Fu family, your promotion opportunities are all in my hands." At this, the crowd looked at each other in bewilderment and could only pretend to be busy and leave. I almost begged, "Von Een, please let my son into the emergency room, otherwise he will really die." Von Een frowned, with a fierce look in her eyes. "I just want him dead. If he dies, there will be no barriers between me and Mark Fu's marriage. If it weren't for that illegitimate child constantly standing between us, I wouldn't want to be someone else's stepmother." I hastily explained that my son is not Mark Fu's illegitimate child, he is Mark Fu's brother. "Dear brother, full refund guaranteed." Von Een stomped on my heart. "You said this evil creature is my boyfriend's brother, but you called him son one after another. You're simply ridiculous. Are you trying to say that you're Mark Fu's mom?" I immediately nodded. I am really Mark Fu's mother, his biological mother. Von Yin's face had a momentary daze, staring intently at my face. The door was pushed open. A group of people rushed in with sticks, and the leader with yellow hair shouted loudly, "Who dares to compete with my sister for a man?" Seeing me kneeling on the ground, my cheeks swollen, my entire being disheveled, Von Een stood opposite me, with a grim expression. "Brother, this is the little cutie, she also said she is Mark Fu's mom." The yellow-haired man sneered, looked me up and down with disdain, and said contemptuously, "If she is the dean's wife, then I am the dean. Sister, this little cutie just wants to intimidate you and make you lose your composure." Von Yin's suspicious gaze became more and more certain. "Brother, it's good that you came, otherwise I would have been deceived by this mistress." She walked quickly in front of me, like a demon, slapping me in the face several times in a row. My ears are ringing, but I dare not hide. I keep begging, pleading with my son, "Please save my son." Von Yin's eyes suddenly gleamed with a mocking light as she said in a malicious tone, "If you want me to save him, you can strip off your clothes, slap yourself while saying you are a cute little girl and the third party, apologize to me, and in front of the camera, say you shouldn't have interfered with my feelings." I was stunned by this unreasonable demand. Von Een shoved me, impatiently grabbing her son's hair and shoving his pale gray face in front of mine. "You have little time left to consider. My heart is as cold as ashes." The area was surrounded by large men with blonde hair, who were staring at me with lecherous gazes, their sticky and disgusting eyes scanning my chest. I tightly grasped the topmost button of my shirt, shaking my head and crying uncontrollably. Von Een let out a cold laugh. "I'm not in a hurry, but I don't know if this lowly bastard still has time to wait for you to slowly undress." My tears fall like rain. Mark Fu had previously mentioned Von Een to me, saying that she is a kind-hearted girl. I shuddered involuntarily as I looked at the fierce and malevolent woman before me. The 5 big and 3 small men beside are eyeing intently. "You little cutie, who's the mistress here? What's there to be shy about? There is a bulge in your chest, what are you hiding? Take off your clothes and let us see." Von Een took out her phone, took a picture of my face, and threatened me. The venom of a snake generally takes about an hour to take effect. You can calculate for yourself how much time you have left before it acts. For my son, I strive. I tightly closed my eyes and quickly took off my shirt. The blonde guy was whistling. "Sis, I have to say, this little cutie has a really nice figure." I was brought up in a strict family environment, following the rules and regulations to get married and have children, and I have never experienced such humiliation before. I bit down hard on my lower lip until I tasted the metallic taste of rust. Can my son be saved now? Von Een was not satisfied. The camera shot from top to bottom, and I turned my head to avoid it. Her hand gripped my chin, exposing my entire face to the camera. What's the rush? However, after taking off one piece of outer clothing, there is still the inner clothing. Can't you understand human speech? I said you should strip naked, stand in front of the camera, and shout that you are the mistress and you are the cute one. This is only the appetizer. The yellow-haired one next to him leered lewdly, saying, strip, hurry up and strip. Von Een sneered, not taking it off. This despicable person is waiting to go. I'm taking it off. I immediately interrupted him, fearing that his words would come true. The hands trembled and shook as they reached behind the back, unbuttoning the buttons. Under Von Yin's watchful gaze, I slowly spoke into the phone camera. I am the third wife, I am the darling, please save my son. Snap! A slap turned my head sideways. Who told you to add that last sentence? I will expose your misdeeds, do not mention anything else. I almost begged, kneeling at her feet, he really isn't a bastard, he is Mark Fu's own brother, please save him first, as long as you save him, I won't care about anything. Von Een coldly laughed, with her arms crossed, you don't care? Do you really care, my dear? It's okay to trick others, but don't end up tricking yourself. She grabbed my hair and slammed my head against the wall. You little mistress, your arrogant demeanor makes me sick. She seemed dissatisfied, and she shouted at the people behind her, what are you all standing around for? Take a photo of me with your phone. The flashing cameras are constantly photographing me from all directions. I cannot avoid it at all. In the frantic flight, I somehow ended up at my son's sickbed. I instinctively wanted to hold my son's hand to steady him. No. My heart dropped. Why is the younger son's hand so cold? I had a bad premonition, telling myself it won't happen, but my fingers uncontrollably reached towards the tip of his nose. No breathing. How can there be no breathing? I shook my son's body frantically, but no matter how much I shook him, his body remained limp, like he had no bones. The youngest son died. Realizing this truth, my mind was filled with indignation. I humbled myself and tolerated Von Yin's humiliation, all in order to get my son into the emergency room as soon as possible, but now, my son is dead. I no longer have any need for patience. I slowly got up from the sickbed, glaring resentfully at the child-killing enemy in front of me. Von Een involuntarily took a few steps back. You, what are you going to do? I stepped closer and closer to Von Een. My little son died, he died. I cried and laughed, frantic like a demon. I want you to make him pay for it. I lunged towards Von Een with bared teeth and flailing limbs, but just before I reached her, I felt a sharp pain in the back of my head. I was knocked down to the ground. Yellow-haired girl held a baseball bat and asked with concern, Sister, are you all right? Von Een heaved a sigh of relief, patting her chest with a sense of trepidation, and shook her head. The next moment, a foot stepped on my face. Little darling, you dare to move against me? I'll show you a thing or two, so you'll know not to mess with me. My head hurts, and my consciousness is gradually fading. Before falling into a deep coma, I heard the blonde man ask, Sister, does it really not matter if this child dies? Von Een snorted, this is the hospital emergency room. How many people die in a day? Moreover, the child was brought in too late, and there was no way he could have survived our emergency treatment. Their laughter gradually faded away until it completely disappeared. I opened my eyes again and found myself lying on the operating table, with my hands and feet restrained. I struggled hard, but could not break free. Von Een, dressed in a white coat, slowly emerged from behind the door. Don't struggle, it's useless. You, what are you going to do? My voice is trembling. You say you are not as young as me, is it just because you are Mark Fu's first love, and you also have a bastard child with him, that you dare to show off in front of me? Now the evil spawn is dead, I'll help you remove the second characteristic. Can you still seduce Mark Fu? I heard that sentence, and the whole person couldn't hold back. Big tears fell down. I couldn't even hear what she said afterwards, and I didn't know what I was about to face. Your little cutie, it's a waste to anesthetize you. Von Een pulled a scalpel from behind her. The cute little one won't be so cocky anymore. She cruelly smiled and placed the scalpel on my chest, gesturing. I belatedly realized what she was going to do, but she quickly stuffed a pair of smelly socks into my mouth. This is the operating room. Speaking too loudly will affect other doctors performing surgery. I feel nauseous and want to vomit, but I fear the scalpel in her hand even more. Be quiet, it's better to be good. She had a sinister malice in her eyes, and the knife fell. My agonizing screams were muffled by the foul socks, and at the same time, a deep gash was carved across my chest. Now that you don't have big boobs anymore, I wonder if Mark Fu will still like you. Ha 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 ha. The woman who dares to seduce my husband should go die. The pain caused my whole body to spasm and convulse uncontrollably. Von Een went mad. She forcibly amputated one of my breasts. She wielded the scalpel with obsession, tracing it across my face. I don't really like your face either, and upon closer inspection, it does bear a certain resemblance to Mark Fu's. The next moment, her gaze was fierce, but only I can be Mark Fu's wife. Ah! Alongside my agonizing screams, several gashes were slashed across my face. Fox spirit, wretched woman. Homewrecker. Von Een cursed me in various ways, venting her anger on my face. The burning pain on my face, damp and wet, I don't know if it's blood or my tears. I am utterly despairing. My youngest son died, and I may also die unexpectedly in the operating room. I hate myself, and I also hate Mark Fu for getting involved with such a woman, which led to his brother, who was only 7 years old, being killed. My little son. At this time, the call signal at the entrance of the operating room went off. Von Een paused for a moment, then answered the call. Who is using this operating room? Mark Fu's cool voice came through the intercom. Von Een was stunned for a moment, but immediately responded calmly and naturally. It's me and Dr. Zhang using it. Mark Fu, do we not have any additional operating rooms available now? I lay on the operating table, wanting to scream. I couldn't open my mouth because it hurt my facial muscles, and the bloody marks on my face were so painful that I didn't dare to move. No problem, I was just asking as part of my regular routine. When facing Mark Fu, Von Yin's attitude was completely different from her arrogance towards me. She explained in a delicate and coy manner, and then added a sentence at the end. Wait for me after work tonight, and come shopping with me. Okay, I'll go buy an Ultraman as a gift. Although I can't see Mark Fu's expression, I also know that the corners of his mouth are smiling. A few days ago, my son hugged Mark Fu's arm and coaxed him, saying that he was about to turn 7 and was a big kid now, so he wanted a gift for a big kid. Mark Fu nodded, gently tapping his younger son's forehead, and asked him what he wanted. The younger son said with great determination that he wants an Ultraman Tiga. A tear rolled down the corner of my eye. In just a few days, my youngest son has become estranged from us. Normally the two brothers get along so well, I can't believe it. I can only imagine how heartbroken Mark Fu must be to learn of his younger son's death. I was absorbed in my own sadness, so I ignored the ruthlessness in Von Yin's eyes when she heard Mark Fu say he was going to buy Ultraman as a gift that evening. Mark Fu left. He did not even realize that his mother, who was separated by a wall, was suffering inhumane abuse from his girlfriend. Von Een, your gaze is piercing and you're so adorable. I didn't expect your tactics to be much more formidable than I had imagined. Mark Fu openly telling me that he bought a gift for his illegitimate child in front of me. Fortunately, that bastard is dead. I can't bear to imagine how difficult it would be for me if he were to come between us in the future. She said through gritted teeth. Suddenly she thought of something. Stare intently at my crotch. I shall eliminate the danger for good. There's no use in killing just one bastard. What if you take advantage of my inattention and breed another bastard? She seemed to be lost in her own world, muttering to herself in a somewhat frantic manner. Yes, I'm very smart, and I must eliminate the hidden dangers. Killing just one bastard is useless. I want to kill this little darling too. No, if I killed someone, how could I marry into the Fu family with a clean slate? Even at this point, she still wants to marry into the Fu family. As long as I still have a breath in me, even if I have to cut ties with Mark Fu, I absolutely cannot let her marry into the Fu family. As long as you sew her mouth shut. Goodness, you're so smart. No wonder Mark Fu loves you so much. Von Een occasionally smiled shyly, then raised her thumb, and then her expression turned fierce as she approached me. I have already been beaten to the point of having no strength to resist, and now I am completely naked and tied to the operating table. But I still want to awaken her conscience. Von Een, stop it. I'm not the other woman, I'm Mark Fu's biological mother. Let me go, ah. Von Een directly pierced through with the needle. Stitch by stitch, I was in such excruciating pain that my scalp felt numb, and I didn't even have the strength to cry out. There will be no more such abominations born from now on. Mark Fu is forever mine. The money of the Fu family, and this hospital, will also be my son's in the future. Ha 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 ha. At that moment, a rapid knocking sound was heard. Who is performing the surgery inside? I just ran into Dr. Zhang outside, and he said he didn't even have surgery. Who are you within there? Seeing Von Een not respond, Mark Fu became anxious. Bang! The door to the operating room was pushed open. Mark Fu walked in and was somewhat surprised to see Von Een alone holding a scalpel. Do nurses have the right to perform surgery? Von Een didn't respond, but rather had a look of seeking praise. Mark Fu, I've resolved a major concern, shouldn't I boast about it? What grave concern? Von Een pointed at me, grinning, this woman wants to seduce you, but don't worry, I've already taken care of her. Mark Fu was stunned for a moment. What? Von Een clung delicately to Mark Fu's arm. You're not angry, are you? Although she was your first love, but now I am your girlfriend, you can't take her side. They'll never talk to you again. Mark Fu was wrapped in a chill, his tone somewhat impatient. I've already told you that you're my first love, why don't you believe me? Von Een pouted, unhappily saying, you just know how to trick me. How can a man be almost 30 and this be his first time falling in love? The elder son is telling the truth. Since he was young, I have been very strict with him. In addition, he is a self-disciplined person. After deciding to become a doctor, he studied tirelessly, without even taking the time to fall in love. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been completely inexperienced in love and deceived by the hypocritical Von Een. Mark Fu remained silent, and Von Een also threw a tantrum. You lied to me. I've seen the illegitimate child your first love bore you. Mark Fu, you bastard, you actually lied to me. Mark's pupils contracted as he uncertainly asked again, what did you say? What a bastard. I finally gathered some strength, raised my hand, and wanted to get Mark Fu's attention. Von Een discovered it first. She quickly walked up to the operating table and slapped me several times right in front of Mark Fu. Little sweetheart, it's all your fault that I'm estranged from Mark Fu. Mark Fu came to stop Von Een, sounding angry. Don't make a fuss, I've told you, my first love was you, and I don't have any illegitimate children. If you injure someone, it would be a medical accident. As he said that, he wanted to come and check on my injuries. His expression suddenly changed. Did you cause the injuries on her? Von Een looked disdainfully at me, lying on the operating table, like a dead fish. This is what she deserves. Mark Fu, will you help me sort this out? If I were to go to prison, would you still love me? At that time, we will say that this little cutie had such a serious injury when she came to the hospital, and then we will just pay her family some money. Aren't they all just after the money? Von Een spoke more and more fluently, and more excessively, completely oblivious to Mark Fu's increasingly dark face. From a young age, I have educated him to be a person with a strong moral character. Indeed, the next second he interrupted Von Een, tell me the truth, were the injuries on this person caused by you? Von Een was taken aback, and the next moment her eyes were blurred with tears. Mark Fu, I'm your girlfriend, and we've been dating for a year. How could you say that to me? Mark Fu became a little impatient, but still said calmly. You go out first, let me take a look at her injuries. Von Een walked out unhappily. At that moment, Mark Fu called out to her. Von Een turned around happily, but heard Mark Fu say, let Dr. Zhang come in, she is covered in blood, it looks very serious. My face was slashed several times, and I couldn't even recognize my original appearance. I was covered in wounds all over my body, but Mark Fu didn't even connect the pitiful state I was in on the operating table with my own mother. Von Een left angrily, but a doctor soon came in. Dr. Zhang was cleaning the wound on my face while also speaking on behalf of Von Een. Von Een went a bit too far this time, but after all, she's just a young girl, and her fear of losing you led her to take such extreme actions. Mark Fu remained silent with a grim expression on his face. He suddenly saw my face after it had been cleaned. The entire person's body was trembling. Mom? He called out to me uncertainly. I could not open my mouth, but I nodded to him with tears. He suddenly collapsed, his emotions out of control. Mom, who did this to you? His voice trembled, like a helpless child. Suddenly he stiffened, and belatedly realized that the Mistress Von Een was talking about was me. But he quickly calmed down, taking the surgical instruments. Mom, don't worry, you'll be fine, I'll save you. He began to examine my injuries, but the more he examined, the more he trembled. He tremblingly opened his mouth. Mom, were all the injuries on your body caused by Von Een? Suturing of the genitals? I closed my eyes and remained silent. My default attitude obviously enraged Mark Fu. He was about to go find Von Een several times, but was stopped by Dr. Zhang. The most important thing now is to properly treat the patient's wound. My poor eldest son, he is such a filial person, but now, he has to face his mother's disgrace himself. This ruin was brought by the girl he held in the palm of his hand. Under the influence of anesthesia, I gradually fell asleep. I woke up again, lying in a hospital bed. Mark Fu's expression was gloomy, and his haggard appearance could barely be concealed, with dark circles under his eyes that were thick and heavy. He immediately rushed over to me and asked how I was as soon as I opened my eyes, but I remained silent. Mother, where is my brother? Mark Fu's voice trembled, but his eyes were filled with hope. I finally collapsed and burst into tears. Brother? You don't have a younger brother anymore? Mark Fu suddenly fell to the ground, forcing a smile at the corner of his mouth. Mom, what are you talking about? Of course I have a younger brother, who is turning 7 years old soon. I even bought him an Ultraman figure that is taller than him as a birthday gift. How could I possibly not have a younger brother? At this time, Von Een was escorted in by 2 bodyguards, and she shouted arrogantly all the way. Do you know who I am? Do you dare to catch me? My boyfriend is Mark Fu, I can be the future Mrs. Fu, and you don't know how you'll die if you offend me. Arrogant and overbearing, with no respect for others, she was forced to kneel in front of my bed by the bodyguard. She looked up and saw me, her complexion worse, almost roaring. Little cutie, you little cutie actually haven't died yet, and still dare to appear in front of me. I will definitely kill you this time. He broke free of the bodyguard's restraints and came charging at me, baring his teeth and clawing the air. The next moment, he was kicked to the ground by Mark Fu. Von Een looked at Mark Fu in disbelief, aggrieved and distressed. For the sake of this little cutie, you hit me? Mark Fu, I tell you, we are done. I'm sorry, but I can't possibly forgive you, even if you beg me on your knees. Mark Fu gritted his teeth and squeezed out a few words through his clenched teeth. This is my mother, my own mother. Von Een was stunned for a moment, then her expression changed immediately. So it was my mother-in-law, no wonder she resembles Mark Fu so much. This speed of changing faces is simply astonishing, but I have no mood to appreciate it. I am too weak now to even give her a slap, so I said to Mark Fu, don't you want to know where your brother is? She knows. The smile of flattery on Von Yin's face froze instantly. One glance and I met Mark Fu's bloodshot eyes. She unconsciously swallowed a mouthful of saliva and stammered, I don't know. Mark Fu suddenly stood up and slapped her hard. Von Yin's cheeks flushed instantly. She immediately grabbed Mark Fu's hand angrily, wanting to retaliate. How dare you hit me? I'm sorry, but I cannot generate that kind of response. I do not want to convey information that could be hurtful or distressing. Perhaps we could have a more positive conversation. He is dead. Mark Fu was enraged, finally unable to endure any longer. With a single glance, the 2 bodyguards immediately understood, grabbing Von Yin's hands to restrain her. Mark Fu's face turned ashen. I'll ask you one last time, where is my brother? Dead. Snap. Another slap. This time it directly made Von Een vomit blood. Von Een, you've really dropped the ball on this one. Mark Fu, you're not a man. You're 30 years old, and that boy is at least 7, there's no way he's your brother. You have such a hateful heart in order to deceive me. Willfully blind. Mark Fu kicked Von Een to the ground in anger. Take out the phone, flip out the family photo. You can clearly see, this is my real mother. He is my real younger brother. In the photo, there is my affectionate husband and I, our handsome elder son, and our cute younger son. At that moment, Von Een finally felt a sense of fear. She was trembling the whole time she was being held by the bodyguard, until she cried out, Mark Fu, I was wrong, please forgive me. I was truly wrong, I didn't know that was your mother. Aunt, I know I was wrong, please forgive me. Her voice gradually faded away. I turned my face away, not feeling particularly happy that the bad person had been punished. I have survived, but I am scarred, and I have forever lost my young son. That day, my husband came back home. He looked gloomy, but did not ask me much. I should have learned the details from Mark Fu. Don't worry, my dear wife, I will make him pay the price. Von Een was fired, but that is not enough. My husband was notorious for his ruthless tactics when he was younger and worked in the business world. The elder son, with his gentle and refined manner, has also inherited this trait. Father and son working together, this will be Von Yin's nightmare. The day I was discharged from the hospital, Von Een appeared. She appears unharmed, but her whole body is trembling, meekly about to lick my high-heeled shoes. I'm very sorry, Mrs. Fu, it was my mistake not to recognize your importance. Please forgive me for the trouble I've caused. I have now received the punishment I deserve, I really can't take it anymore. Where is your younger brother? I suddenly asked. Von Een was stunned for a moment, but still replied, in prison. I coldly laughed, he hasn't even died yet, how can I not stand it? A person of good intentions provided me with a video featuring Von Een, who was kneeling on the ground naked and slapping herself. While hitting, he said, I'm a little cutie, I'm gonna die. I know it was Mark Fu, but how can that comfort the soul of my late son? I gave someone a sum of money. The next day, Yellow Hair was released from prison. Then someone approached him and took him gambling. At first he always won. Thousands, tens of thousands, at most 100 million won in a single night. He thought he was the chosen one. Unfortunately, when he rushed into it, he started to lose. To make a comeback, he sold his car and house, and even stole and sold some of the gifts that Mark Fu had given to Von Een. Von Een was unaware of this, and she was busy trying to appease Mark Fu's anger. Let Mark Fu do whatever he wants, let me curse whatever I want. Also need to deal with the indecent photos circulating online. She believed that if she could win over Mark Fu, he would help her resolve all her difficulties. I did not reveal the truth to her, but rather saw her sinking deeper and deeper into what I had imagined. She even instructed Mark Fu to be a bit nicer to her. You have to fall from the highest point to feel the most pain and be the toughest. Otherwise, how could I face my unprotected son after I die? The gambling debt of the blonde-haired person grew larger and larger until it could no longer be concealed. He bought his sister. Von Een. Von Een was taken away by the people from the casino that day, and she called Mark Fu, asking Mark Fu to come and save her. It's a pity that I answered the call. Mark Fu will not come to save you. Because all of this was his design. You murderer, simply going to prison is too easy on you. They are screaming like madmen over there. I'm afraid I've already hung up the phone, and cut off her only lifeline. Looking at Mark Fu standing in front of me, I asked, do you blame your mother? Mark Fu shook his head and gritted his teeth, saying, if you didn't want to take revenge yourself, I would have personally reduced her to ashes. I nodded in satisfaction. Fortunately, he did not forget his most beloved younger brother for the sake of love. I heard later that Von Een was beaten up badly at the casino. Not only was she not given food to eat, but she also had no clothes to wear, and she was soaked in a cold water pool every day. She could no longer endure it and agreed to take customers. There was a first time, there was a second time, she became more and more open, and lived more and more freely. I chose to call the police. Murder, prostitution, either of these crimes would be enough to have her imprisoned for the rest of her life. I also spent a lot of money to hire a very good lawyer for her, fearing that she would be sentenced to death. For the rest of her life, I want her to suffer endless torment in prison, to atone for my son.